When we talk about the South African National Roads Agency, we often say, and we say it all the time, that SANRAL is more than just building roads. Well, today we're exploring the idea of smart mobility. What on earth is this, and how does it affect you and I? I caught up with project manager Siveshni Pillay. You do fascinating work. I know that you're a civil engineer by training, but your project management has put you in a very different space. And I just wonder if we can start with what on earth is smart mobility?
So I think, Peter, it's interesting that, I think in just generally, we use really clever words and we try to describe something. But in essence, smart mobility is about, taking technology and applying technology to what we do every day and seeing how we can improve lives. So I think smart mobility as a concept for me is using this technology to really look at how we can make infrastructure smarter or infrastructure better. So there always comes a point where you cannot build more roads. You cannot continue to build more infrastructure for demand, because at the end of it all, we need space, we need capital expenditure, we need money, all of it comes into play. So how do we find another way to still provide the service to the public or to service to the road user? And in the same way, what do we do? What techniques do we employ? And I think the world is moving into this technology culture. Everybody has a smartphone. Everybody is, it's really at the tip of your fingers that you can find out anything. I don't think I understand that, we sit in a conversation and you never know okay, let's Google it quickly so we know the answer. So I think we use that kind of premise of saying, let's take technology, apply it to what we currently have, and then we develop situations and adapt situations to make it smarter for the public.
I mean, as you're talking, I think of how sometimes technology arrives and you might not have thought that it could apply in your environment. And when you're needing to find these solutions, the technology which wasn't built for you suddenly becomes applicable. Is that what you found over time? Because once upon a time, you literally just sort of dug roads, put tar down, and that was it. But then we became digital, apps came, all sorts of things arrived. Is that the journey that SANRAL's been on?
Yes, and I think, what's been really good about SANRAL as an entity or an organization is it's always been a company or a culture that is encouraging to you. So now you look at, your roads and you think, okay, what can I do to improve what the work I'm doing? And it's always been one of those places where you can explore and you can decide, okay, can we try this? Will it make? And I think it's important. Our mandate is important to remember, and that's we make roads safer. So how do you make roads safer? Using what we have, being exposed as well. So I think it's also a bit of exposure. So we get a lot of exposure both locally and internationally, and we kind of get ideas, and then you write, okay, will it add benefit? Will it add value? And how can it improve what we already provide to the road user?
All right. Well, let's explore some of the flagship projects that you've worked on in terms of using technology to improve and make mobility smarter.
So I think maybe and I always say it's nice that we can talk about what we've done, because we have, and I think the flagship project always for SANRAL has been our freeway management systems. So I think a lot of people know about the CCTV cameras we have on the side of the roads and our variable message boards. So I think lots of people in Gauteng or in Cape Town are familiar with the boards that say so many minutes to the next interchange. So that's one of the very first pilot projects we ran in the country. It was up here in Gauteng at the time. It's a 24-hour, 7 days a week, 365 days monitoring of our freeways. We have a lot of dedicated staff sitting there watching. And I think we also must say that, it's one of those tools where you don't do incident or accident management. I think a lot of people perceive it as if we're watching out for accidents, and it's not it. It's a congestion management tool, because our aim is that traffic must be free flowing. So how do you ensure that you get to your destination on time? Because we live, let's be fair, and Gauteng is the economic hub of Africa, essentially. How do we keep people moving? Because It's about making people, time is money, and how do we move the economy? And that's our job, I think. So the flagship obviously was the freeway management system, and we've built on from that because the systems evolved over the years. As technology comes, like I say, I think technology changes quickly, but we've evolved the technology. We've got a lot of more exciting new,
let's talk
legs.
a little bit more about freeway management. How does it work? I mean, how do you, because it must be data driven, and you have to collect lots of it and make sense of it.
So the freeway management system essentially is all our CCTV cameras we see. So it's a constant monitoring of the freeway. So at the Central Operations Center, we have a very dedicated lot of staff that sit there and watch the freeways. So their job is really to move the cameras and check if there's anything that affects the free flow of traffic. And it could be anything. I think it's not necessarily accidents, a lost load or something to that effect, or stationary vehicles. I think we don't appreciate that a stationary truck actually affects traffic a lot and the mobility of traffic. And that's where I think that concept comes from. So the staff sit there through the day, through the night, and I always say Christmas and New Year, while everybody is with their families, we have staff sitting in that office watching the freeway so that everybody can get to their destination quicker. So it's not really data driven in that sense. It's more a visual aspect. So I think it's monitoring, constant monitoring of the freeways, but we do then eventually get data.
And the impact for me as a driver is that you can get to an accident site, for example, get it cleared as quickly as possible.
So that's what's nice about our centers. I think, we have centers now in KZN in the Western Cape and Gauteng, and pretty soon we're busy with a similar center in Port Elizabeth. But the nice thing is, we have cooperation or collaborations with the local police. So they co-locate with us in the center so that if we do have an accident, you call them out quickly, and, they can contact their center and dispatch emergency services or police immediately. But, it's important to say that in Gauteng, we have a special arrangement or a special situation where through obviously the fact that it is a toll route, we provide an additional service, which is our on-road services. So we actually have a team linked to the traffic management center. That's a dedicated team of towing vehicles, emergency response units, emergency response vehicles that is actually SANRAL owned. And the purpose of them is to get to people. We always say the engineering term or the road safety term is to get to somebody within the golden hour, because that's when you can save a life. So the aim is that this unit is dispatched from our center immediately on this 251 kilometers that we cover in Gauteng. And they have a very strict timeline. So they have to be at an incident, within 12 minutes of verifying it's a real incident. So they have very strict timelines, but we provide the service here in Gauteng that's working very well hand in hand with our local police departments and emergency services.
All right, so we live in the world of apps. SANRAL mobile app, what does that do?
So we've introduced now the SANRAL mobile app, and I think, we were always talking about that shift where people want to have information available. And it started off obviously with the toll-related facts. So now you have what we call an interoperable toll system, and you don't want to have to travel to Durban and realize you don't have money, or the nice thing about technology is not everybody wants to take money out their wallet and hand it to somebody. You want to have that free flow capacity or that free flow ability. So the SANRAL app allows you to load money onto your card, load money onto your account itself and travel. But further to that, I think where we started with what the intention was and where we're going is quite exciting, because now if you go onto your mobility app, you can there's 22 facilities around the country, including malls, that if your account is up to date, I love it, I have to say. You get to a boom at a shopping mall, it automatically opens for you. You don't have to take a card. You drive out without having to stand in that queue on a busy Saturday morning. So we have the parking ability already implemented. We have the interoperability functionality already implemented. And then there's a whole host of other value-added services we're considering.
Wow. I mean, that for me is the kinds of experiences that makes a difference in my life. So what about account-based ticketing? What's that all about?
Okay, so part of the value-added services we were chatting about is, how do we take the technology sitting at the e-toll center or the toll facility itself, and how do we sweat the asset? How do we we provide more value to the customer. So not necessarily in a positive sense. What do we do with this technology? And one of the biggest projects we're obviously running on the back end is the account-based ticketing project. I think for everyone, we think about a single integrated ticketing system. I think we've spoken about traveling around the world. We get a card and we can travel on the bus or the taxi. So that's exactly the same concept. The difference is that each of our municipalities and provinces and public service providers will still have their own front-end system, but the mobility account, or the account for the user, sits with us, where we clear the transaction and provide the money back to the municipality. So the exciting part about account-based ticketing is eventually it will build up to a point where we can provide a full-blown, what we call mobility as a service concept. And that means that at your fingertips, both for government and the public, we have real-time information being fed, where we can see where supply and demand is coming. But as an individual, you're always asking about how is it benefiting you? You will have at your fingertips the ability to say, okay, which is my fastest mode of travel today? What can I take? Or if I need to get here, what do I take? And I think that's where that real-time aspect comes from. And eventually that's the aim and what we want to provide. I know it sounds, I have to say in my head, whenever I think about it, it sounds like a utopia. But I think everything is possible if we have enough will to do it. And I think in this day and age, people are really willing to try to find a solution to problems. And I think we'll get there.
Next time we chat, we'll talk a little bit more about the future and the projects going forward. But perhaps just to close this one off. So smart mobility, I suppose it's about helping you do your work better and also improving my experience as a user consumer.
Exactly. So I think the nice thing about smart mobility is it's not a singular term and it's not a singular benefit. The concept itself works to everybody's benefit. And I think it's important. What happens now is we change the landscape of what is traditionally known. You know, the buzzword always is, there's always buzzwords in the industry, and this is called disruptive technology. So disruptive technology then introduces us to the point where we say it's disrupted what we know in our everyday life, but it's added benefit and value. And that's, I think, is the aim of smart mobility. And I think it's really good. I think SANRAL's really embraced that concept, and it's good to be able to, to use this knowledge and to give value as opposed to the road user.
Siveshni, it's been a pleasure talking to you. I look forward to our next conversation as we look ahead. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Peter.
That was Siveshni Pillay talking to us about smart mobility and some of the flagship projects that SANRAL is undertaking. Next week, we have a chat to her again about the future and what smart mobility has lying ahead.